Wow, so bright. Prabhupada sometimes would say the difference between a living being and a dead body. It's like the difference between a living being and a stone. Your connection is weak. More problems. Okay, so some questions came up about feeling. And this word came up in English, sentimentalism. You have that word in Chinese? So, I did a little study today about this word. It's very interesting. This word is not commonly used outside of ISKCON, at least not used in the same way we use it. This word reached its greatest use in the early part of the 19th century. It's when it was used the most. Sentimentalism. And Prabhupada uses this word a lot. And that was the time Prabhupada was educated. So that word was a popular word then. And it's a popular word in ISKCON. Right? Yeah. So, I was talking a lot about putting emotion into chanting. And then we did an exercise where we played Prabhupada chanting japa. And then we just asked everyone to feel, listen to Prabhupada and just see what you feel. Sort of what he said, I can feel the love. I could feel Prabhupada's present. I could feel his compassion. What else did they say? Peace, peace, crying, the relish, praying for everyone. Could feel all these things just by listening to Prabhupada chant. Then someone said privately to me that she's a very emotional person. She's an artist, musician, and that's a dancer. So it's a high emotional profession. 3 professions, highly emotional, right? And another devotee, actually 2 devotees said that. One was told, you're a sentimentalist. And guess what they told the other one? It also starts with an S.
Sahajya? Yeah.
You're a Sahajya. So, we're here talking about integrity. And last week we talked about self-deception. And as a part of integrity is being aware of yourself. And that would mean being aware of your emotions. So I thought it would be nice today to talk about the place of emotions in devotional service. Is there a place for them? And if there's a place, what's the place? And what it means to be Sahajya, and what it means to be sentimental. Now, sentimentalism, you have a word in Russian for that? It's used a lot. Prabhupada uses it a lot. And he also sometimes uses the word fanaticism with sentimentalism. Religion without philosophy is sentimentalism or sometimes fanaticism. So first I want to describe what Prabhupada meant by sentimentalism. He didn't mean don't feel anything. That's not what he meant. He meant that people feel things which are not supported or not backed up in Shastra. And their feelings they take as truth. If I say something and it hurts you, you feel hurt. And in your feeling hurt, you feel that I said something bad or wrong. Your feeling dictates I said something bad or wrong because you were hurt. So your feeling now defines the truth. What I did was bad or wrong because you feel hurt. Now, I may not have done anything bad or wrong, but your feelings dictate the truth. The truth is Mahatma did something bad because what he said hurt me. That's your truth. Maybe what I said was right, and you misunderstood it, and therefore you think, I hurt you. So you didn't understand the truth. So your feeling is not true. It's not dictating what's true. Does that make sense? Yes. So most of us see reality as how we feel. I have a question for you. Is it hot in the room or is it cold in the room? Now, based on how you're dressed, I could give the answer. It's cold. It's hot. It's cold. Definitely it's cold. Not so cold. Right? So, yeah. He's from Canada. It's definitely not cold. This is like a summer morning. So, is it hot or is it cold? According to me, how I feel defines what it is. So, if how I feel is not aligned with what's in our Shastra, we call that sentimentalism. Maybe I'm posing as a guru, and I know how to fake everybody. I know how to walk, I know how to talk like a guru. But in my private life, I'm just a degraded person. And you see me, and I have the right walk, the right gesture. I do everything right, and you think, oh, he's so amazing. He's so exalted. That's how you feel. But your feeling is not true. It's not how I am. I'm actually very degraded, and I'm just faking you. So, that would be called sentimentalism. There's no basis in Shastra to prove that I'm a guru. I'm only just with a big beard and a big turban, and I laugh, and I know how to do everything, and you think, oh, he's a guru. That's sentimentalism. And Prabhupada used to say, you think if he has a turban and a beard, he's a guru. He's a sadhu. So there's a verse in Nectar of Devotion, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatrakim Vinivina Ikontiki Hare Bhakti Upataya Vikalpate. If what you say isn't supported by the Shastra, Shruti Smriti, the Puranas, then Prabhupada said, it's just sentimentalism. because it's not true. It's just how you feel. I may be a thief and a murderer, but I make you feel good. And then Peter says, he's a thief and a murderer, and you say, no, that's not true. I feel so good when I'm with him. So, here's a little mantra for you. Don't believe everything you feel. Don't believe everything you feel. Who likes that mantra? Who doesn't like that mantra? Now, if we can feel everything that's Krishna conscious, then you can believe everything you feel. Then it's okay. And when you become advanced in Krishna consciousness, everything you feel will be Krishna conscious. Correct? So now we have a problem, because in some devotees' minds, even perhaps in some leaders who have instructed you, when a devotee feels something, a red flag goes off. You understand red flag? A warning sign. If I'm feeling, the warning is, he's a sentimentalist, because he's feeling. You understand? If you have strong emotions, people think, devotees might think this is bad, because you're a sentimentalist. And they might tell you, you're a Sahajya, or you're a sentimentalist, and you shouldn't have feelings. Now, it's true, some feelings will get you into trouble. You have experience of that? You ever get angry? Envious, jealous, greedy, lustful, yeah. Those feelings will get you into trouble. And because those feelings get us into trouble, some of us have learned to suppress all feeling. Because as conditioned souls, most of our feelings get us into trouble. So then sometimes we think, oh, if I don't feel anything, I won't get into trouble. Does that make sense? Or we get this idea that, well, feelings are bad. So just don't feel and you'll be okay. And then what happens is, has anyone ever been taught that philosophy or felt that way? That if I feel that I might get into trouble? Raise your hand if you've ever either felt that or been told that. You may have all been told it, you just didn't understand it, which is good. Because it didn't. Maybe you were told it, but it didn't make sense to you. So, but it'll make more sense as I talk. If someone's a thief, if someone is a murderer, have you ever thought, how could somebody do that? It's like go up to an old lady and snatch her purse. How could you do that and not feel bad? You ever thought about that? How could you kill someone and not feel bad? How could you march 500,000 Jews into a concentration camp and put them in a gas chamber and go to sleep that night and not feel bad? And people do that. How do you do that? There's only two ways. you have to be completely disconnected from how you feel, or you have to rationalize that these aren't human beings and they're the scum of the earth and they deserve to be killed. And that way you can become numb. But in either case, you're numb, right? You make yourself numb. Has anyone ever done that? Disconnected from their feelings? You all should raise your hand because we all do it all the time. And if you didn't raise your hand, it probably means you're so disconnected you don't even know you're doing it. I don't want to offend anybody, but that's probably what it means. Okay, so I want to ask you a question. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What are you experiencing right now? At this moment, right now, what are you experiencing? Somebody tell me, what are you experiencing?
Я ощущаю комфорт и интерес в том, что он говорит и как он ведет по этим лабиринтам ума.
Okay, good. Someone else? How are you feeling?
I'm just trying to understand my feelings.
Exactly. And if you're trying to understand your feelings, what does that mean? Disconnected, right? This guy, this psychologist said, he said, I ask people, what are you experiencing right now? And they go like this, they look up to think about it. And he goes, your feelings are not on the ceiling. Your feelings are here. All right, someone else? Was somebody feeling like, that was a scary question because I don't know how I feel? Anybody feeling that? Or I hope he doesn't ask me to answer the question. Is anybody feeling like afraid that I might ask you? Because why?
No, I'm feeling nothing right now. I'm just trying to understand what
Yeah. She said she's feeling nothing, which is impossible. Which is I'm trying to prove we're disconnected from our feelings. He knew how he was feeling. We've got two disconnected. There's a lot more here that are disconnected. So I don't want to embarrass you, but I'm disconnected all the time. Yes?
I'm feeling inspired.
Oh, good. Feeling inspired? All right, let me ask something. Does anybody not know how they're feeling? Is anyone trying to think how they feel? Raise your hand if you're trying to think how you feel. Yeah, that means you don't know how you're feeling.
He's not saying how I try to feel how I'm feeling.
Or if you're trying to feel and you can't feel how you're feeling, you don't know what you're feeling, yes?
I feel I made the right choice about coming here today.
Good. So some of us are more in touch with how we feel than others. Some of us are less in touch. And I'll just give you a little of my experience. When I was a young devotee, we had a program where we would go house to house to distribute books. And our goal was to meet somebody who would invite us in their house. And we would talk to them and their friends. We might even have a kirtan, spontaneously. And if they were really submissive or open, we might even cook some halava for them. Just knock on the door, and an hour later, kirtan, halava, and invite your friends over. So that's what book distribution was like. This was 1970, when most of you were in another body. Maybe I was at your house selling a book. That's why you're here. I don't know. Maybe you were on the Sankirtan party and just, died early. So, around 1972, 1973, book distribution changed in America. When we went out, we would just preach straight. This is the philosophy, this is what we do. 1972, 1973, devotees discovered if they said things like, take this book, we're helping kids off drugs, can you give a donation? They would sell more books. Oh, okay, here. Here's a little book about peace of mind, we're helping kids off drugs, can you give a donation? Take this book, we're helping feed kids in Bangladesh, because during that time there was problems in Bangladesh. We're raising money, and George Harrison, he's into this book, can you give a donation? It's like that. Then it got a little worse. I won't describe, but so some devotees might have been feeding some people in Bangladesh. Yes, we help people off drugs, but it's a little misleading. And at that juncture, when book distribution changed, many devotees stopped distributing books because it didn't feel right to them. I said, I can't do that. But the ones who did that were distributing hundreds of books, and the ones who didn't do that were distributing like 10 books. So it was almost like, why even just go out? Because they can distribute hundreds. So many devotees, they didn't feel right. It went against their conscience. He said many things. That's for another lecture. And what some devotees had to do, in order to do this, they had to disconnect from their feelings. Okay, let me tell you what we did, because it got worse. This is ISKCON history. Take a little book, and then you just start talking to them, ask them where they're from, then you tell them you have a cousin where they're from. Where are you from? I'm from here. Oh, I have a cousin that lives there. And you compliment them. You make them feel like $1 million. You tell them the book is free. And just as they're walking away with the free book, you say, oh, by the way, we just take donations. Whatever you want to give. How much? You just give anything. And when they go to open their wallet, you say, I have a lot of $1 bills. If you have a 20, I can give you change. Then they give you the 20. Don't get any ideas. Then they give you the 20. And then you say, depending who they are, if they're fresh out of the military from some small town in America and very innocent, you would say something like, the biggest donation we got today was 100, but if you give over 100, then we'll put your name in our newspaper. So they try to get like $100 from them. Something like that. And if it was an ordinary person, we would say something like, well, a lot of people are given 20. Could you just leave it at that? In their mind, they might have thought, I'm going to give $5 or $2, whatever. And sometimes they would say, no, And then you'd start giving them $1 bills back. Well, how about 15? And no, how about 10? Why don't we just leave it at that? Thanks a lot. And shake their hand. And you don't even let them tell you how much they want to give. Right? You think people like that? Now what was happening was devotees were blissed out because using that technique they could distribute 20, 30, 40, 50 Bhagavad Gitas every day. And there were some devotees trying to explain that this is not good. People don't like this. People are not reading the books because they're having a bad experience. And they were in denial. They were not feeling what those people were feeling. Because if they felt what those people are feeling, they couldn't do that. So in order to do that, they had to turn their emotions off. Just like the thief, just like the murderer, you can't do it, right? Unless you become numb. So it was an unfortunate, it had its pros and cons, but we had taken many devotees who were young and trained them up to lie to people to get money. And many an honest devotee, in order to do that, had to think, this is a higher service, and had to turn off how they felt about it. And at some point, many of those devotees, they said, I can't do this anymore. They actually got in touch with their feelings and they couldn't do it. So inadvertently, we were causing people to learn how to be detached from how they feel. Then we have other situations where maybe somebody's doing something wrong, but if you say anything, you'll be kicked out of the temple. So then you start to think that I'm seeing things that's actually not wrong, and there's something wrong with me. Prabhupada Priya, you must have experience of that. Yes? Yes? Something's wrong, and you can't say anything. And you're not allowed to feel it, because that would be offensive. So, you have experience?
Oh, yeah.